Hi there, this is Ron Rogers, and I'm going to tell you about how my flight attendant saved me from a London pub brawl. Now, a lot of people ask me what my regular route is, and pilots typically don't have a regular route because we bid for days off and try to maximize our time off usually. Now, there are some guys, like in the case of Beijing, there were a number of pilots who had businesses. They would import stuff from Beijing, and so some of them were very experienced. In fact, first time I went to Beijing, I asked to have an instructor along with me. And she says, well, let me look up and see who your co-pilot is. And my co-pilot was a guy that they called Beijing Mike. And she kind of laughed and says, no, you got a guy that's better than an instructor line check airman. She said, you got Beijing Mike. He says, he flies there all the time. He knows that backwards and forward. And she was absolutely right. I digress here a little bit, but she helped me out, and that worked out great. But for the most part, we bid for days off. Now, the flight attendants, especially the ones that fly to Hawaii, that is a group that I flew with the same group all the time. And the same group kind of would also tend to go like to Munich or to Frankfurt or to London and stuff like that. So what I'm getting at is they get to know the local area very well, better than the pilots. So they're a great source of, hey, what's fun to do, local customs, how to stay out of trouble and stuff like that. And in this case, they prevented me from probably getting into a reasonable amount of trouble. Now, I love London layovers. It's one of my favorite layovers. Of course, I got a lot of favorite layovers, but London is just a lot of fun. I mean, you may find this surprising, but there is a lot of old stuff there. And I know Rome has old stuff too, but London has a lot of cool stuff, and it's just a fun layover. Except for the traffic getting from the airport to the hotel. And I don't care how many times, we get off the airplane, we go down to the bus, and then they drive underneath London Heathrow there. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. I'd still be lost there. That has been declared the only construction site with its own airport. Now, back to the story. Okay, so we were going out and we were making kind of the pub crawl. We're going around to a number of the pubs, and all these pubs have their own interesting, distinct characteristics. They all have a nice classiness to them. And in fact, there's one that even has some skeletal remains in little crypts and stuff. I actually have a picture of that. I should have included it, but yeah, that's a little eerie. But anyway, they're all cool. They usually have unique names. They have, they go back a long ways, and they all have a certain class to them. But I want to say something here first. Let me tell you about Stella. Now, I had a friend of mine. We'd fly over there, and we'd get in and land, and before we'd go out anywhere. And the nice thing about these layovers, we have long layovers, so you have plenty of time to have a drink, a pint or two, which is the nice thing. It's not like domestic where it can be really tight at times. But in fact, sometimes you can go on a 4-day trip and not even have enough time to get a beer, which is really kind of unfortunate, if you happen to like drinking beers and things like that. But anyway, on the international, I've had 4-day layovers, but we'd go and we'd hit the pub in London there, and we'd have a Stella. And, oh man, it just tasted great. So we go, hey, that's a great beer. Stella's a great beer. So we'd come back here in the States and we'd order one, and we'd go, this tastes like a friggin' Bud Light. Now, nothing against people who like Bud Light, but, a lot of the beers over there have a lot of quality, and it wasn't the same beer. And I'm trying to figure out this, and I go for a long time, and finally I come across somebody who actually knows a little bit about the whole process, and he says, yeah, what they do is in London, you have all the natural aspects of it. Here, they pasteurize the beer, and it just kills it. And the taste between, if you like Stella and you haven't had it in Europe, have one in Europe. It's a totally different beer. I won't even drink Stella over here because it tastes so much like crap compared. I guess it probably has to do with the comparison. But anyway, okay, I digress. Let's get back here. So we're hopping around to the various pubs, and the business is kind of light. We might be a little bit early, stuff like that, but we're having a fun time. And okay, it starts to get a little more crowded. All the plays have let out, and the local entertainment establishment, I guess, and they said that's when it starts to crowd up. So the place starts to get a little busy. Now, I know there's a thing. I didn't know it at the time. The flight attendants educated me on this, and you may find it surprising, that people actually, you throw in the alcohol and maybe they start talking about sports teams or politics. And in London, sports teams probably is much more fight-inducing than politics. But things can start to go bad. And in fact, I learned later that there's a phrase, and you can actually get a T-shirt with this: "A pint and a fight, a great British night." Okay, they actually like going to a pub, having a pint, and getting into a fight. That isn't my favorite thing. Like I'll go to a hockey match and see a fight break out. And in fact, I one time was at a fight and I almost saw a hockey match break out. But okay, well, what's going on here? I got the situation where I'm alone here. I'm in the process of we've ordered the beers and we're paying for it. And the flight attendants go over and they set down their table here. Now there were several guys with them too, and one of the funny thing was one of them was a very short guy, but there were several guys with him. There are the women. This guy comes up to me and he says, now he's Irish, okay? He tells me he's Irish, and I say, I'm Irish too. And the thing about Irish, they have a saying that what we do as Irish is we go to bars, we pick up women, we get into fights, and we do really weird dancing. Well, I've got Irish, a little bit of British, a little bit of German, and actually a little bit of Russian, which I think explains a few things in my personality. Very small amount, though. But anyway, the German kind of keeps the Irish part under control. But this guy is saying to me, he says, "You have perfect hair." And I'm going, "What?" He says, "You have perfect hair." And, he's trying... I don't know. Did I have perfect hair? I have absolutely no idea. But he's trying to start a fight over my hair. Can you believe this? I have perfect hair. He's trying to start a fight over that. And I'm going, how do you get out of back away from a fight that a guy is, trying to pick over your hair? That one I did not know how to diffuse. But the fortunate thing was the flight attendants over there in the corner, they're kind of observing this. And, okay. They, all of a sudden, they come up around, and it was actually the small guy in the group. I mean, he's like a foot and a half shorter than this other. This other guy was, I'm 6'1", 210, and he was, maybe he's a slight bit taller, maybe a bit heavier. Not much, but he's pretty close to my size. We were fairly compatible, but the 8 flight attendants come up, and the little guy says, "Hey, boss, what's going on?" And I said, "Well, we're just having a discussion of hair here." And the guy kind of looks around a little bit and decides, well, maybe he's going to go back to his back to his drink here, and then he and his little buddy shuffle away. So we have a nice little fun time with that, and that was just kind of a funny, experience. And the nice thing was, it was good to be with a group, because I think if I wasn't with this group, he would have tried to, involve me in a fight. So when you can bring another 8 people into the equation there, and one or two of them were my co-pilots too. So we had quite a big group there, but that changes kind of the whole equation, because they virtually came and surrounded this guy. So it was kind of funny. But okay, we had a few drinks. We went a little bit, I think we went to another pub or so. But it's getting time to go home. Okay, so this is a little funny adjunct to the story. Now, that green circle, I think, is some in the area where we ended up, and we had started to disperse, and we were walking back, and this one flight attendant, she had these shoes that were definitely not made for going very far. They were the nice high heels with just a little strap, and they weren't they weren't running walking shoes or anything of that sort. And women, I have the utmost respect how you can wear those things, but they are not something to go long distances. And of course, they invented cobblestones in London, so the roads aren't always the best, although the paths are pretty good for walking. But anyway, digressing in my own digression here, the whole deal was we're going back and we're getting a little bit behind the rest of the crowd. They're not paying too much attention. They're kind of wasted, and it's kind of ended up just me and her. And we kind of get separated, and I get my map out, and I go, well, our our hotel's down here, and we're up here somewhere. And you know, the streets, if you look at the map, I mean, they go all cattywampus. I mean, these are old paths that were kind of put together, and they ended up being streets, you know, and they're very narrow. If you ever try to drive in London, which I have done, that is an adventure. But the streets are just, you know, and they go every which way, and trying to find the names and stuff like that. But anyway, I go, okay, there's this big river in London. And I am going to do, you know, they taught you this in the Air Force. It's the mean error correction or something. You go to try to find a landmark that you can follow. So I go, I'm going to go to the river and I'll just follow it south. That'll work great because our hotel is right down there off the river, and I'll be able to find it, and that's great. Well, the trouble is, this River Thames, it does this little bend here, and you see where that blue arrow is? That's where we were, and I kept going over there to find the river, and I suddenly realized that I was going to go a long ways before I was going to run into any water, and it might even be an ocean by the time I got there, or channel actually would be the more correct term. And I finally realized that, and we headed on south, but by now her feet are just not making it, and she is in serious pain. So I ended up carrying this flight attendant. Fortunately, she was a nice young flight attendant. Not this was not going to be a weightlifting championship exhibit here, so it wasn't too hard to carry her. So I ended up carrying her for a few blocks and into the hotel, and they had kind of the rest of the crew had kind of congregated in the lobby, kind of wondering where we were, and I come in carrying her and set her down. They thought that was rather funny. But anyway, that is the story. If you're an aspiring young airline pilot, the flight attendants can really take care of you, give you a lot of good advice on layovers, and keep you out of trouble. They can tell you the things that you don't want to do, or where you can be getting into trouble. And if a strange place, being with a crowd can be very helpful. So anyway, that's my story about how a group of flight attendants, I think, saved me from bodily injury in a pub in London. I hope you found it interesting, enjoyable, entertaining, and whatever else you'd want to find it. Thanks for watching.